about to hit
Thank you. I thought, Darren, I thought you were forsaking it.
Does Jill know about this? Which one?
Oh, you know what happened? When I was hiding lines so you guys could see it better, I forgot to unhide them when I sent it, so I had to reprint it. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Hey?
You'll be in there before you need to put it on anyway.
It's okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this special meeting of council to order. The first item on the agenda is the public input period. Thanks. If anyone wishes to address council at this time, you have 2 minutes of our time. Please come forward, state your name, where you live, and ladder.
Worship Council, Terry Miller. I live in Rossland, the chair of the Sustainability Commission, and I'm here to talk about your recommendation to cut our funding. Everyone understands very clearly that tax dollars are extremely tight in this town, but I want to talk for just a second about how this community is so rich. We have a set of assets that other communities gaze upon with wonder and envy. We have a plan, a living plan, a strategic sustainability plan that's created by this community. It's a long-range plan. It's a plan with stretch goals. It's a plan with vision. We have a structure in place. That's another asset. If on paper the Sustainability Commission and the task forces that are set up could be the model for community engagement and for increasing the collective capacity of how we get things done around here. And number 3, we've got a committed core of volunteers who brings passion, expertise, creativity, time, and effort to bear on matters that we think are vital to our community. And we think that in these times, above all, Rossland needs all hands on deck. We've got just about everything we need in place to do great things. Cutting our manager out, cutting out any operational and seed money, and moving project onto the sides of the desks of your already busy staff by our estimation is short-sighted. With the greatest respect to the city's capable and committed staff, I predict that the amount of work and that the cohesiveness of a focused plan and an important link between this council and your community will suffer. Now, the SC and our task forces, we believe, have a proven track record for success. We've been able to leverage funds and support projects. We have a set of indicators now that actually we can benchmark Rossland's progress towards sustainability. We have a climate adaptation plan. We have conducted shim mapping. We've supported tourism impact studies. And the Energy Guide, of course, is the poster child, a project that was born out of the efforts of this organization that's generated hundreds of thousands of direct and indirect dollars into this economy and this community and have helped change people's behaviors. And because we have had a paid manager, we were able to coordinate and manage this work plan and take advantage of emerging opportunities and connect with our community. Now, we've struggled to strike a chord with the leadership of our municipal government, and after years of asking, we finally actually got city staff representation so we could better coordinate and strengthen our efforts. I thought things were actually looking up. But despite the disappointment of your budget recommendations, our group is still charged and committed to this work. The work laid out in the SSP will continue in one form or another. It has to. This group of volunteers is committed to the vision of Rossland becoming a more resilient and adaptive community, and working together with council and with our neighbours, the potential is nothing less than fantastic. So financial support is important, but the dollars pale in comparison to the need for council's buy-in to this process and this structure, and to people who are willing to stick their necks out for the good of this community. Once again this weekend, the SC met as a group and reaffirmed that despite the plans that we heard about, that we read about, the current structure of a sustainability commission with its various task forces hardwired to the city through bylaw is still Rossland's best bet for meaningful and positive change. The volunteers in this community will continue to work hard on the issues of sustainability no matter what this council decides. And no matter what your decision is tonight, we'll need to come up with a smooth transition plan. We have a manager under contract who's waiting to understand her future, and we have a number of projects that are already underway that need to be managed. But before you make your final decision tonight, we'd like you to consider the potential opportunities lost if you cut off our funding to have a coordinator and a modest operating budget, the loss of further funding opportunities, loss of momentum, and the potential disconnect that could occur if the SC and its task forces are set adrift.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that wishes to address us?
Hey, my name is Steve Ash. I think I know everybody. And I've had the pleasure of serving on the SC as a commissioner for the past 6 years or so. And that was following a formal process that the city undertook to engage commissioners to sit on the Sustainability Commission. I think we all appreciate the financial challenges you have, and I don't want to talk to that particularly, but I do want to talk to the fact of trying mentally to separate the issues of financing from the structure and retaining, as Terry says, the momentum of the Sustainability Commission. What you've created in Rossum, what we have all created in Rossum, is very impressive. I mean, I don't think you should underestimate what has actually been achieved over a long period of time and a fairly significant struggle to have something that's created by way of bylaw, which is very powerful and has very significant meaning. I had the pleasure of presenting on behalf of the city at the UBCM to talk to the Energy Dive, and there was a lot of discussion about the Energy Dive, but one of the main questions really was, how were you so successful? How were you able to do all this? And really what it boiled down to was that we had a formal structure and a formal process of support from the city, and we shouldn't underestimate that whole process. And so what we have is a somewhat independent body that's working on behalf of the city and bringing outside views to the city on an ongoing basis. And I guess my key point tonight is to say, please don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's not throw out the structure as we in the haste to try and save the money. You know, the money is, as I say, is a separate thing. Of most importance to me is that the SC does bring a different independent perspective to a lot of different things. And I think that if the issues were totally internalized within the city, you would miss that. And the reason I kind of view it as, if you like, an audit of city thinking. Now, the city does a lot of great things, and you get a lot of things right, but sometimes you get them wrong. And to have people prompting you to think in a different way on a whole bunch of things is very, very helpful. I think the whole fiasco of the previous building inspector and some of those things may not have happened if there'd been more independence of input. So I think that piece is invaluable. I know a number of the other people are willing to continue, but we don't want to be in a structure that, if we're offering up a point of view, it just gets overridden, and the city's going to do this way. So I guess my main point is that over the next number of days and months ahead, as we look to change the structure, try and meet your budget and try and save money, that we look to find ways of more effectively doing what we do, bringing the thoughts and bringing this independent audit of thinking so that we can make change. And my last point is that unless at all levels we change the way we think and the way we do things, I think we're not going to progress as a society the way we should. Some changes have to be made, and I think the structure that Rossum has is a way of moving some of these changes forward. It's not the only way, but it's a way of moving these things forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who wishes to address us, please come forward. Yes. Get your name and...
My name's Michelle Laurie. Most of you know me. Where to begin? I guess I'm here to say that I do not support the budget. as it is. I support what the others have said, and I'd like to add that for me, I moved here permanently 6 years ago. I found Roslyn a very attractive place to live, and it was not for the roads, and it was not for the museum. In fact, what set it apart for me is the fact that we were going down a sustainability process, and I found that unique. Could have moved to Nelson, could have moved to Kimberley, could have moved to Golden. I had all 4 on my list. But Roslyn hit the mark because it was important to me to live in a community that was forward-thinking. People like me can live anywhere. I don't work in Roslyn. I'm one of those people that they did a study on the nomadic entrepreneur. But that is why one of the main reasons that I actually decided to settle here. And I don't think I'm alone. I think that, I know that sustainability in Roslyn is one of the underpinnings of our culture. And to make those kinds of things happen, you need a coordinator. I'm sorry, I was not here at the meeting, but I do not agree with the fact that volunteers alone are going to move things. They definitely help, but having a champion, a paid coordinator is what makes things happen. I'm not opposed to the Sustainability Commission joining in further with the city, but I am opposed to doing that without a transition plan in place first and having serious discussions and ongoing with the current Sustainability Commission to make that happen. I think that there is time that needs to be in place for that transition to happen, and having a coordinator helps make that happen. You may or may not know, but I have been working with local governments across this region and outside for 6 years. And one of the biggest challenges, I work on sustainability issues, is every council is passionate, but they do not have the means to engage with the community. And that is always, in many of the projects I work on, one of the biggest shortfalls. We are very lucky here and should not underestimate that. We're ahead of the game, and we don't want to lose that. I don't want to. People didn't want to talk about finance before me or what other things that have happened, but I wouldn't mind mentioning the fact that a couple weeks ago, I've been traveling, but I did know that other areas of the budget came up for discussion. So, for example, some of the salaries of our senior staff, and that discussion went by very quickly. I find it completely unbalanced that we can so easily cut the commission's budget and their coordinator, yet not even discuss the fact that we are paying outrageous salaries for senior staff, and in some contracts could be revisited. This is the taxpayers' dollars, this is our money, and we should be able to spend it across the community as we, as a community, see as appropriate. And I'm not saying that people aren't doing their jobs well, I'm just saying that after talking to other friends and councils around, we do pay a lot more than the average, and I don't think that that's where our tax dollars need to go when we're looking at cutting all these niggly little parts of our budget. So,
Great.
I hope that you consider my thoughts, and I'm sorry that I have to run because I have a young baby at home, but good luck. I know it's not easy.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that wishes to address council?
Hello, my name is Rachel Roustan. I live in Roslyn. I'm here today in response to council's recommendation to move the management of the Sustainability Commission in-house and not grant the Sustainability Commission their requested $28,000. I'm respectfully urging council to reconsider this recommendation, as I believe it would greatly reduce the productivity and momentum of the SC. The city has not yet articulated how they plan to implement this change, which raises the concern that the FC's capacity to continue actions on the goals outlined by the community on sustainability would fall to the wayside. Many volunteer groups in Roslyn have paid staff. I believe that a part-time manager greatly increases the capacity of an organization and also increases the morale, productivity, and sustainability of the volunteers. City staff already have their plates full. I can't imagine how they have time to replace a part-time manager for the Sustainability Commission in-house. We need a strong Sustainability Commission to serve us as a sustainability champion, to continue to distinguish Roslyn as an innovative town that plans for its future. Thank you very much for considering my request today to council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roustan. Anyone else that wishes to address council, please come forward and state your name. Chair, we'd like to have your name, please.
Graham Kenyon, otherwise known as the ghost from the Christmas past.
Good to see you.
The ghost who spent 2 years helping to create the SSP, the plan that has served as the basis for a new OCP and the plan that has set out a vision and a sustainable direction for our community. Those were halcyon days, if I may say so. The Council of the Day was enthusiastically committed to the mission, as were the staff. The citizens of Rossland embraced the concept and participated in unprecedented numbers. At the end of the day, I think we all felt that the SSP truly reflected the aspirations of our community. Then the hard part, implementation. It was Ron Campbell's idea to establish a Sustainability Commission to coordinate and assist to manage the activities of the task groups, to monitor the progress of implementation and to provide longer-term continuity. As he put it, with perhaps remarkable foresight it seems, leave it up to councils and it will fail. They will always have other concerns and distractions. The SC is comprised of volunteers, but it provides valuable service to the city, presuming that the city is really serious in its mission to progress towards that ultimate goal of the SSP. The total elimination of funding support for the SC delivers the message that you are not really serious. That is a message that will seriously jeopardize our ability to attract the intellectual and financial resources and the partnerships that are essential if that goal is to be achieved. That is my concern. Hopefully the ghost from A Christmas Yet to Come will have a more encouraging tale to tell of how a council renewed its commitment and we all lived happily ever after.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to address council, please come forward.
The roles of the commission and the city are different. Any community like ours trying to go forward on sustainability issues benefits from having both the community and the city involved. The beauty of the commission is that it gives that community part of this partnership. I think that moving the management into the city in-house would be a mistake from a governance perspective because it would merge those two separate identities and roles together rather than leaving them separate, which is where the strength and the diversity and the partnership comes from. So that's one. The other thing is societies and mostly volunteer-driven organizations really benefit by having a paid staff person, part-time manager, to keep the day-to-day operations going. You know, you may not know this, but the Kootenai Columbia Trail Society never would have gotten off the ground if we hadn't talked the Council of the Day into funding the beginnings of it, and funding would take coordinators to get it going. Volunteers burn out. Volunteers can do so much on specific projects, but they're not the ones who need to be writing grant applications and stuff like that. When you have a part-time manager, you can keep the continuity, you can leverage your funds, you can go out for those grant opportunities. And if you look back over the 6 years, the SC has done that extremely successfully. And they've done it because they've been able to work with this structure. And the city has been able to keep this partnership with the community going because the commission took that part over. So I'd like to see you modify that recommendation. Drop the part about taking the management in-house. Let the SC continue with their part-time manager on this reduced budget which has been proposed, which is really very modest for what you're getting. And I'd like you to know that as a taxpayer, I think $28,000 is a damn good deal. It's really good value for the money, and they leverage it. so highly that it would be a mistake to drop that part of the budget, and I think it's a mistake to combine the roles into one, because you would lose the community part, which is so important.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that wishes to address? Council, please.
Hello. My name is Alex Lowe, and I live in Roslyn. And I don't want to repeat all the points that's said so far, because I agree with everything that's been said. So I'll highlight just a couple of things that are different. One is, Michelle said she could have lived anywhere. Well, I could have volunteered anywhere. I was a corporate vice president at Microsoft. I could have, I do volunteer almost full time in my life. And I chose to volunteer with the Sustainability Commission because of its power, because of its effectivity, and because of its ability to get things done, very important things done. I'm new to the community, and I came in full of ideas and full of enthusiasm, but I didn't know anything. I mean, as I love to say, I'm a damn American. I don't know anything. But Ann is the reason that car sharing will come to Roslyn this year. Without Ann, would car sharing come? Sure. But it would probably be at least next year, maybe the year after. And when I say sure, as people have said, the burnout of volunteerism could have dropped by then. I am speaking to you today with walking pneumonia, and I'm here in part, and I really mean this respectfully. I was so taken aback at the comment that volunteerism is somehow hampered by an administrative staff. I volunteer at large regional orgs, small orgs. Every last one of them has a paid volunteer. People volunteer at schools and libraries and museums. They all have paid staff. So I lost sleep over that comment, and I find it, quite frankly, insulting to those of us who are passionate about our volunteering and give a lot of time to it. And I know specifically with Ann's case, I wouldn't be able to be effective in this role without that support. I think that's everything I had to say. I do think the one last thing I'll say is that I'm really confused on where this leaves Ann. I don't understand the contract, but I'm really confused on the communication, and I asked Ann, and I don't, it was a couple days ago, but she didn't know the answers either. So I just find that incredibly weird. So anyway, thank you for my chance to speak, and I hope you take my feedback.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the
Hello, my name is Kaylee. I moved here to Roslyn 4 years ago to ski, and my partner and I decided to stay and buy a house because of the rich culture in Roslyn, and a big part of that is the Sustainability Commission. I would just like to reiterate that we get great value out of our paid coordinator, and having it separate from the city but collaborating with the city as the position traditionally is done seems like a strong way to continue with the organization, and I hope this evening you will find some other area to cut funding to reallocate it to the Sustainability Commission. I think if you want to look at bringing it in-house, that should be part of a bigger discussion over, a strategy to continue working toward the goals that were outlined in the SSP, because at the moment, the way it's been presented to us, it seems like it's an ad hoc move, and I feel like the productivity and capacity of the SP will be reduced unless there's a thoughtful process to figure out how the Sustainability Commission, with all the volunteers, can move forward. And the future needs to be with the city and with the residents of Rossland, but we need to find a way that works, that volunteers can be supported and the city can also continue to work on the goals. So please find a creative solution to this dilemma. Thank you.
Thank you. Kaylee, I don't know that staff has your last name.
Mulholland, like MUL and the country of Holland.
Very good. Thank you very much. Anyone else that wishes to address staff? Or to address council, sorry. Please.
Sue Wrigley, I live in Rockland. I support everything everyone has said so far. We've got some amazing people in this community who can talk incredibly well, much better than I can. But I just want to say that I also am a nomadic. I work from home. I work outside of Rockland. I work outside of Canada. I chose to stay here. I also came to ski, but I chose to stay here because Rockland's such a forward-thinking community. And the Sustainability Commission, unfortunately, I don't have time to volunteer on it, but I think it's fantastic. And I don't understand why, I guess I haven't had time to do a lot of reading on it, but I don't really understand why everyone else got their funding, why you wouldn't take a little bit from everything and look at other cuts to manage to keep something that's so important, like the Sustainability Commission management. And that's all I have to say, but I support everything that anyone else has said.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anyone else that wishes to address council?
Jan Micklethwaite, I live in Rockland. I guess one of the things that really astounded me was that suddenly our budget appeared and there had apparently been very little opportunity for citizens to give input. I know I've been pen pals with a lot of you on the topic of communication for several months, and communication seemed to be something that you valued, and yet I didn't see that happen in this situation. Suddenly the budget appears and we're all scrambling trying to give you our input about why things like the Sustainability Commission are important, and we're wondering whether you've had enough time to look at all the different line items on the budget, thinking, as Sue mentioned, there must be other places where you could have picked up a few dollars here and there and perhaps put together $28,000 on the scope of our budget. That doesn't seem like a lot, and it just feels to me that the budget was put off for such a long time that suddenly everything was compressed into a short period of time and perhaps wasn't done as well as it could have been. So I'm very happy to hear that you are going to be talking about next year's budget starting in June. I think that's a step in the right direction. But I am very disappointed that this budget has been compressed and forced into a time frame that didn't seem to provide enough focus and enough consideration, so that we wound up in a situation, as the members of this gallery have pointed out, that is very unsatisfactory to many citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that wishes to address council? Second time, is there anyone else that wishes to address council? And for a third time, is there anyone else that wishes to address council? Seeing none, moving right along. We need a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councilor Wall, seconded by Councilor Thatcher. Discussion on the agenda. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Adoption of council minutes. Motion that the minutes of April 23rd, 2013, committee of the whole meeting be adopted. Moved by Councilor Wallace, seconded by Councilor Spear. Discussion on those minutes. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Motion that the minutes of the May 1st, 2013 committee of the whole meeting and the recommendations within be adopted. Moved by Councilor Wallace, seconded by Councilor Moore. Discussion. Councilor Wallace. Councilor Moore.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment out of respect to the citizens who showed up here tonight to give their input to our financial plan. I suggest that we pull the recommendation concerning the Sustainability Commission out and discuss it individually before either adopting it, modifying it, or defeating it.
Okay, so what is the amendment then that you're asking?
That we'll pull the recommendation. Yeah, I'll make an amendment that we pull the recommendation about the Sustainability Commission out of this committee of the whole recommendations and discuss it separately.
Okay, seconder to that amendment, Councilor Spears. Discussion. Councilor Fisher.
So I don't mind supporting the motion in terms of having a discussion on it, but and while I'll address everyone. While I continue to support the direction that we're going, I don't mind having the discussion, and with the respect that everybody has come and voiced their opinions on it. My opinion on it is that unfortunately, and this is my opinion only, is that planning has taken a back seat for several years. And during the course of the SSP and the OCP, I don't think that a broad enough view, not by the people that coordinated or did it or participated in it, was taken. And what I mean by that is there is a massive deficit in terms of infrastructure in Rossland. It's not a small deficit, it's a massive deficit. And it's going to take millions of dollars to get there. With a really well-coordinated plan, we have a chance without seeing taxes go straight through the roof. This year, I think our regional district down the road is going to be increasing their portion of the taxes by 9%. That's something that we don't control, but that's coming anyway. On top of that, we're in the second phase of a liquid waste management plan with our partners down Trail, and where we have one vote. And so we're in a deal there potentially that they say, let's build an $80 million plant, of which we pay 21.5% or something like that. So if you do the math, even with partnerships from the federal government and the provincial government, we're talking about a whole lot of money, and we don't have a plan currently in place that encompasses all of that. So the problem that I have with the way that the budget is laid out at the moment, with everything involved, is that when we say, well, can we find cuts somewhere else? Well, we probably can, but we're going to have to cut beyond what we're talking about now. Starting June 1st, this council is going to have to look at a realistic plan going forward. And the unfortunate part for the Sustainability Commission, not necessarily the commission, but the people of Rossland, is that had we looked at that 10 years ago, looked at the overall deficit that we were facing, and we knew it. I think people in the community might even have known it. But to the extent that it's real, we've kind of kicked the can down the road, and we can't do that anymore. And so, I mean, somebody grabbed me in the drugstore while I was getting my Valium for tonight's meeting, and we talked about it at length. And I wish I could go out and talk to absolutely every person in town and explain $42 million deficit on infrastructure alone. That does not include the sewer plant. That does not include increases in wages and all the other things that 3,742 people have to pay. And I just, no matter how I look at it, I just can't see a way that we can't do it without cutting and changing some things or drastically increasing taxes over a long period of time. So, well, I would support a motion to discuss it further. I just wanted to let everybody know, including council, exactly how I felt about it, because it's a big issue. It's a massive issue that we have to deal with.
And further on the amendment. Okay, can you read the amendment back to me?
Resolved that the recommendation in the minutes of the May 1st, 2013 Committee of the Whole meeting regarding the Sustainability Commission be pulled out and discussed separately from the motion to adopt the minutes and recommendations of that meeting.
Okay, call the question on that amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. The main motion, the amended main motion now, is the recommendations being adopted. All right, moved. It has been moved and it has been seconded, so we don't need to discuss that any further. So on that, all in favor?
Wait.
This is on the amended motion.
We're just voting on the amended, because I wanted to, okay.
We've already voted on the amendment, and now we're voting on the main motion as
for the
amended.
rest of them, okay.
So on that, everybody get that?
Yep.
All right, on the call the question on the motion, all in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. A motion now to recess to committee of the whole, moved by Councilor Spear and seconded by Councilor Fisher. Thank you very much. We are now in committee of the whole. We have to switch agendas.
I don't know what I'm going to do. You need a hand? Okay.
Okay, we are in committee of the whole. I'll call this committee of the whole meeting to order.
Question. So when are we going to discuss this amendment right now?
Committee of the whole.
Okay,
All right.
okay, perfect. Just want to make sure.
Okay.
Call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Motion to adopt the agenda moved by Councilor Moore, seconded by Councilor Spearn. Discussion on the agenda? None, all in favor? Opposed? Here. Thank you. Unfinished business, further council review and discussions. Ms. Arndt, if you wish to.
What I was supposed to do is to just review the changes that we made. There's a couple items that I wanted to speak to as well, and give council an opportunity to make any further motions. So I've got it up here. It's pretty paper. And the highlighted ones are the ones that council identified on May 1st that would change. So we had recommended a 2% tax increase, and that was the consensus of council was to go 0%. So of course the utilities and grants, the utility taxes then would also flatten. The utility user fees increased because we had missed the, as Councillor Moore pointed out, we had missed the new services, so we added $16,000 in revenues for that. So those are those changes. Government services went down by $125,900. That is a different way of recording. Before, the transfers used to go below the line and instead of netting out. So it's just a fix. And then the sewer operations went up by $25,000, and that's because the RDKB contracts went up by $25,000, and we started with just a straight line. 33. Of course, community support, this part didn't change. You just asked me to split it, so we did. And then the community support, where we had said to leave it flat for now, council identified some cuts, and those are reflected in there. We can go over them again if you like, or we could just leave it for now. Capital expenditures went up by $30,000. Oh, the new debt interest here is that I split out the interest from the principal payment, so the amount didn't change. So the capital expenditures went up by $30,000 because I had missed $30,000 on the broadband. What I had done was taken the $30,000 out of the phone service. I forgot to add it to there, because I was saying that if we do the broadband, chances are that we wouldn't have to update the phone services at City Hall. Okay, so that's it, and of course it ends up your transfers over the next 5 years then are lowered, transfers to reserves are lowered by $250,000 by making these changes. So that's those changes. Now, Darren and I took to heart council, there was a lot of discussion about changing some operations and stuff, and we still feel that we should really plan this through the way that we talked about. But there's a couple things that came to light. One of them is this $80,000 that is scheduled, it's work that's been on the books for 3 years now, and it's an upgrade to Cook Avenue Park. And we're saying, well, you know, if council is thinking of perhaps closing some parks down the road, we should really defer doing that. There's no point in doing an $80,000 upgrade to a park that all of a sudden council might decide in the fall. So what we're going to do, what we'd recommend is we leave it in the budget, but we won't do the work, we won't schedule the work till the fall, till you're doing your planning for your whole asset planning. So just leave it in there and defer it. And same with the swimming pool. You know, to redo the floor, to redo the fencing, to do all of that when you're going to look at the whole recreation structure, there's really, why would we spend $37,000 on that right now, right? So Darren has assured me that he could do a quick fix for this year, band-aid it up, and then in the fall, again, when council is reviewing all of the services that they want to look at, then you could decide then, right, if you're making a call on this. So that's monies that we're going to recommend you leave in the budget, but we won't do the work until the fall if council decides to go ahead and do it. Okay? So that's that plan. So, right, so what we were really hoping is to get 3 readings of the bylaw tonight. So you've got that bylaw in front of you, And now I think we'll leave it up to council for council discussion. Did you want the community support tab up?
Sure.
Okay.
I think then the first thing that we should do is, Ms. Moore wishes to defer this to this discussion, so let's have the discussion again regarding sustainability.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, I have a number of notes on this. First of all, I appreciate all of council's efforts to try and look for ways to save money, and I think we did some of that, and that was a good thing. But as Councillor Fisher says, we have a lot of money that we need to save, and to sort of cherry pick certain community groups at this time, I think is inappropriate and actually quite disrespectful of the groups themselves, which was sort of where I was trying to go last time, where I did small shavings with the from all groups, with the understanding that in June, after Councillor Fisher's motion passed, that we would have an in-depth discussion of how we're going to really strategize for next year. That's when we sit down and really make these hard decisions. There were other things about that discussion about bringing the SC's manager in-house. At the March 11 meeting, we approved the work plan in principle and referred the budget decision to our financial planning session. At that time, the motion to bring the manager's role in-house was discussed and defeated because we said we didn't want to do this in a void without information. So we said, okay, we're going to discuss it. Then when it came up in our financial planning session last week, we didn't discuss it. We didn't have the discussion about how would it work, what's the capacity of the in-house staff to do this. Are we really, what modifications are we directing the commission to make on their work plan? We didn't talk about any of that, and I think that's we didn't even talk about really how much money it was going to save. I mean, if you look at salaries of staff versus salary of the outside manager, there's some differences there. That's not a savings unless you cut down significantly on the hours, which means cutting down on the work plan, which is something we didn't discuss. So I felt like we were putting the cart before the horse. I have a suggestion that will make keeping the Sustainability Commission manager intact. That's basically revenue neutral for this year. Which is not to say we wouldn't talk about what we're going to do in June, but it would keep things the way they are for this year, and I want to talk about that. And remember, our CAO had suggested that 2013 be our planning year, and I think we should be doing a lot more planning before we do a lot more cutting. And also the other thing I want to remind everybody, I don't recall whether the mayor expressed support, but everyone at this table expressed support for the strategic sustainability plan, except for Councillor Thatcher, who hadn't read it, but once he'd read it, he expressed support. So I think we have to, bear in mind we've sort of basked in the glory of the accomplishments of this group, whether when we're at conferences and we're getting awards or the grants or those kinds of things, that is a value. Let's see, what else do I have here? And many of the grants that were gotten by the SC are not grants that are available to municipalities. They need to be at arm's length from a municipality, so we would lose a lot of that money, and that would be unfortunate. And I think, let's see, the other thing about the Sustainability Commission formulated their request, or reducing their request from 35,000 to 30 to 28, partly in conjunction with myself and a staff member looking at the ways that they could save money. As far as I know, they're the only group that did this. They're the only group that came back with a reduction of what they wanted for over last year, not an increase or not the same. I don't feel this is a decision that should be made so, cavalierly. So here's my proposal. In our updated financial plan, there's a line item for the SC that has $5,000. I'll make a motion that will save us about $21,000. If we just top it up with a small $2,000, we can come to the $28,000 that they need for this year. So I'd like to, I don't know if I need to make a motion on this, I'd like to make my other motion before, well, we don't have a motion on the table, so, okay, so that's good. So, the motion that I'd like to make is that we reduce the seasonal cleanup to once per year. That would save us $21,000. And we allocate that money plus $2,000 to the Sustainability Commission. So that, with the existing dollars, would bring it to $28,000 for 2013. That probably isn't a very good motion. Hold on, let me rephrase that.
I think if you're going to combine those two, we're going to have some discussion on the, I think you're talking about the spring and fall cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
That involves labor, right?
Well, yes.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
So
it does.
I think the motion that you may wish to make, and it's entirely up to you, would be to just make a motion that we find the 28 grand, if that's your motion. Whether, if you want to tie it directly to that, I think that that's going to get into some other discussions as to.
Your Worship. The fall cleanup, what happens is if our guys are doing it, then they would be redeployed to do something else, right? So doing the, if council doesn't want to do 2 cleanups, that's fine. You can just say we just do 1 cleanup. But I would recommend then that if that's the case, that your motion is just that we only do 1 fall cleanup, and we don't change the budget for that this year. We will just come in under budget on that section, and then just ask for the extra money, because you do have a bit of wiggle room. So if you just move that you're going to give up you're willing to give up 1 fall cleanup, and then just ask for your extra funds, make that your motion. That's probably a lot cleaner.
Without tying them together.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I did want to comment on the fall cleanup, though, if I could, just as a...
You can comment on that. I think
okay.
first of all, we're going to deal with this, right? That's why
okay.
we have this screen up here.
Okay. So, well, let's see. So rephrasing my motion, it will be that we find the additional funds to bring the Sustainability Commission up to $28,000.
That's a fine motion. That will work.
I'll
Right.
second
Seconded by Smear for discussion.
Well, I guess, do you need to say more?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is...
How much discussion?
No, the only thing I was going to say about it is that I mean, I understand the points about the fall cleanup, but I just think we do need to look at that. In 2009, we did 1 per year, right? And that cost us $12,500. In 2010, we decided to go to 2 times a year, and it cost us $29,700. Now it's cut for 2 times a year. It's costing us $41,300. So it's gone. You know, it's definitely costing us a lot of money. And I actually do think that there would be a way to reduce that. So.
Counselor, I think the motion is on the SC funding.
Yes, it is.
And we will get to, if you wish to discuss that, we will get to that when we get to operations.
Okay.
Right now, we have this up here. If you don't
Okay.
mind, you have your motion and it's been seconded.
Your Worship, I would like to reread the motion
Thank you.
before you. Motion moved by Moore, seconded by Spearn, that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that Council find the funds necessary to support the Sustainability Commission up to $28,000.
Is that your intent?
That's my intent, and I will have one other thing to say about it, is that by going through this budget, as you all know I have done at great length, I do believe there are other places, if we just, you know, sharpen our pencils a little bit, that there are funds that we can find to support the commission, and it'll be a win-win. We'll be able to continue the fine work this group does.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Street.
Okay, so first of all, I would just, before I say a couple of other things, say to the gallery that the process around this decision is never ideal when we have a committee of the whole meeting and there's no forewarning on decisions that are made. And so when you have the committee of the whole meeting like we did a week ago, and you have all these discussions and recommendations come out of those meetings, we're not planning ahead for that. And it's through the decision, the debate of council at that time that results in those recommendations going to a regular meeting of council. So I want to sincerely apologize to the Sustainability Commission that the process with regards to this is unfortunate, because I know, being a part of the Sustainability Commission in a bit of a capacity anyways, that had I have known or had any forewarning about that decision, I would have certainly had some communication with you. So I want to apologize, and sincerely in particular to the group, to supporters of the group, and to the manager and Damoud, because it's really unfortunate. So, having said that, speaking on the motion, we did have a lively conversation about this and many other issues on the budget last week. Unfortunately, I think there was 1 person or 2 people maybe in the gallery. So I guess the good thing about this is it brings you all here. It brings Graham here, who I haven't seen regularly enough over the last few years. And I was at the council table when the Sustainability Commission was struck and the bylaw came into being, and it was one of a few things that was really exciting for Rossland and really stands us out above and beyond other small rural communities. And you know, there are people who believe that core services is the job of what we do here at this table, but core services are dealt with every municipal government in Canada. So that doesn't stand us out above and beyond, but the sustainability program has put us really into the limelight, not only in British Columbia, but far and beyond. And for anyone who doubts the work, and I know that people around this table don't doubt the work, but if anyone, and it's been said by many people in the gallery tonight, that most of the successful groups, or pretty well all the successful groups that have volunteer-based, have some kind of a coordinator who takes on that role, and we pay them, be it the NOL, be it, I mean, Tourism Rosin has an executive director, the Chamber, and many of the other groups. So for us just to, you know, take a, you know, one-handed swipe at the Sustainability Commission and say we're going to bring it in-house, with all due respect, I think that the role of the Commission will be diminished. I think the work that the Commission has done and the liveliness of the Sustainability Plan will be greatly diminished. And I really don't think it's fair, honestly, that this group has, and I'm going to use the word targeted, been targeted as the one where it's possible to bring it in-house and sit on the corner of someone's desk and for it to run as it has run. So obviously I'm speaking in favor of continuing finding the $28,000 for a group that I have enormous respect for, which has brought people to our community very seriously, because it makes our community stand out above and beyond the other little places where numerous people have spoken that they could have gone and lived otherwise. So I hope Council will reconsider, and in the grand scheme and the new planning we're going to start in June for next year, that we will be looking at everything that has to do with the City of Rossland financial planning. And I think someone called it a luxury, the Sustainability Commission management position. It's anything but a luxury. It's a job that is very difficult, but has led us to become a community where we again are quite outstanding. So I don't think I need to say any more, but I hope the Council will reconsider bringing that position in-house.
Further discussion? Councilor Bishop.
Well, I don't disagree that that in the event that the Commission did not have funding for a paid manager, that I wouldn't disagree that it would have some diminished capacity. I would hope that the capacity of the volunteers and the enthusiasm of the volunteers obviously has taken a hit, but I'm hopeful that it wouldn't be completely destroyed. And I don't think it would be, by hearing the comments that were made by the people that spoke tonight. I also think the Commission has done great work, and we're not making, I can only speak for myself, I'm not making a decision in a vacuum or trying to pit one group against the next, but when you put black ink on paper, and you look down the road at the possible red ink that we face, things have to change. And unfortunately, there are some areas, and I don't see it as a luxury to have it. I see it as a privilege that we actually have these kind of volunteers. But at the same time, with the deficit that we're facing down the road, and the one that we currently have, not financially at the moment, but in terms of infrastructure and where things are going in the city, I think without being coy, we've been irresponsible as a body of government that has been moving forward after the last 15 years by not looking at this stuff. You know, 15 years from now and 20 years from now, hopefully the Commission has done unbelievable things that we can look back on, And if we have to take a step back to ensure that we can take steps forward, then I don't think that it's a completely disastrous moment. I do believe that a transition is needed. I'd be in favor of looking at how we do the transition, but I'm not necessarily in favor of trying to move other things around to find more funding. I'm really looking at June as being a time to look at other areas where we can cut funding, not funding, but cut spending, in order for us to maintain the services that we have now, today. That's all I have to say on it.
Councilor Belcher.
Well, I'm not really. I'd be for looking at, shifting some money around as long as we didn't increase the budget at all for this year. We have to start planning in June, and we are going to have to start looking at further spending cuts in all areas, I think. If we did fund them for this year, I think that we'd have to look at a transition for 2014 where we have to come in-house. So it's going to happen, one day, but we have to start saving money so we can have a more secure future. So.
Well, I'll start by talking about how we got to be this late in the financial planning process. And it has to be remembered that our manager of finance left us last May, and we haven't had a manager of finance sitting in this city hall since then until our CAO has come to us and taken over that position. This city hall, long before this council, long before the previous council, I would say as long as I've lived in this community, city hall, regardless of who sits around this council table and who happens to be in the staff positions, takes a fair amount of criticism from this community. And I think that the community needs to recognize that staff resources are one of our most significant resources. We pay money for them, but they're also the one that gives us back our benefit. So when I hear comments about, I guess, somewhat of a neglect that we're at this point in the planning process, that our salaries at City Hall are high, the community needs to recognize that the way the community treats City Hall and City Council is a piece of that. And, I'm sure there will be people that don't like what I'm saying, but in my time sitting here, this is a truth that I have come to understand. There needs to be more appreciation for the very hard work done, not so much for council. I mean, when we sign up, we know that we're going to get beat up, but for staff. And the fact that we haven't had a finance manager sitting in this city hall until Ms. Arnott's been able to take over, that leads to this situation. And the atmosphere that's created in this city hall by a hypercritical small portion of our population leads to this result. So I'm starting by saying that. As far as the SC goes, there has not been any discussion about moving away from the strategic sustainability plan, or not following through with those action items, or not continuing with the Sustainability Commission or with the task forces. That hasn't been a discussion around this table. There is an assumption that I'm hearing from some members in the gallery that council is moving away from the Sustainability Commission. What council decided was that we could take that staff person in-house based on recommendation from staff that it was doable. And no, we haven't had the time to clearly detail how that's going to be done, what the transition is, how we're going to implement it. Given that we're going to start budget discussions on June 1st, that's the time that we get into it and figure out how that plays out. But the other piece of it that needs to come into this is council makes decisions based on the greater good of the community. And there are a lot of people in this community that don't know what the Sustainability Commission is. They don't know what they do. They see some pretty pieces of paper occasionally, and they wonder why their tax dollars are going to it. So that is another thing that needs to happen as we move forward, is for this to become a more inclusive situation. And I have heard from residents, whether permanent or otherwise, who feel less than welcomed when they show up at a meeting. So I've heard that. So the difficulty is that it's never an easy thing to remove services, and it will always be problematic to do so. But we are in a position in this community where we have to start doing it. We simply have to. I agree completely that our job is to make sure that we have the core services of roads and water and sewer. And our roads and water and sewer have significant deficit attached to them. That's where our funds need to go. The other side of what I hear is that we can't sell real estate in this town because of the level of taxation, that we can't sell greatly reduced market value brand new condos at the Hill because of the level of taxation attached to them. That's a problem. So the direction that council is trying to take is to become more fiscally responsible. And at this point in time, I just can't support the motion on the table.
Thank you. Councilor Booth?
I guess it's my turn. So I just want to reiterate that we are definitely not saying that we don't support the Sustainability Commission, we don't support their mandate, and we don't support that they are, you know, a great addition to Roslyn. That's, you know, in my mind, it's a pure part of being in Roslyn that you have groups like this, and I think it's excellent. All that we're saying basically is that this year, the Sustainability Commission is moving from that category, community support grants and assistance, down to community support, operating support, and, you know, the amount will be decreased. We haven't actually set what that, what the number will be, you know, how many hours they will be allowed to use of staff and all that, but these are, unless it is there?
Are you talking about the operating support? No, it's not going to go there.
Well, operating support, I guess, you know, basically it's what do you say, in kind, right? So there still is, and there's money attached to that in kind, you know, equivalent, right? So there still is money from the city, from taxpayer dollars, going to Sustainability Commission. And the Sustainability Commission, they're a group of, you know, very capable, innovative volunteers who can, are still fully open and, you know, that still can pursue funding through other means, you know. There are grants, there's CBT, there's, I mean, for the energy diet, they had the partnership, the corporate partnership with Fortis, and, you know, there's any number of things. I mean, you know, it's a creative group with lots of abilities, and I don't doubt that they'll still be able to do what they do and get funding for it. In fact, there is potentially, I mean, I can't, you know, show you a grant app right now and saying, you know, here's one that would give you money for somebody like Anne, but there's ways of getting money to do that. It's just that this year it's not going to come from the community support grants and assistance. And so, you know, it's a part of being on council. What I very quickly realized is that every time you make a decision, you make some people unhappy and some people happy. And, you know, all that we can do is just make decisions to the best of our ability, considering the big picture that, you know, every line item in the budget for this example. But you just have to take the big picture as you know it and make a decision to the best of your conscience of, you know, the forward, you know, what's happened, what's going to happen, and all the information we have now. And that's all we can do. I mean, we did have, I'm not sure, was it about 8 or 9 people who spoke here today. Did anybody catch anyone? Six. So.
4, 9.
9? Okay. So there were 9 people to speak to this, and the thing is, though, is that I have to say I know well more than that of people who are very happy that we made this decision, and because the decision is what they consider, what the decision is moving forward the way that they want it. They're not here to say, don't do it. But, the fact of the matter is, yes, this was a tough decision to make, but we have to be responsible. We can't just give money to the community groups as they ask for it, and then say, that's okay, we'll just increase taxes to meet it, because there's so much more at play, and that would not be the responsible decision for us to make. So we have to say no to some people. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. And I do stand by our decision to do this. We did make that decision for the Sustainability Commission and none of the others, but that's because the Sustainability Commission has the relationship with the city that enabled that made that, the possible decision to transfer the funding, through a different avenue, I guess, and that's the next step. That's that's what I have to say now.
Okay, we've had many hours of discussion.
No, anymore.
I'm not to call the question yet, but I just want to make sure if we're bringing up new stuff, that's fine. But I don't want to just keep re-going over everything. Councilor Moore.
Well, I want to make a couple of comments about what's been said. Councilor Blumey made a great point. We're making the decision to the best of our abilities, and I think it's pretty clear that we did not make this decision to the best of our abilities. We've set out a plan for planning starting in June, and that's a really good thing. We made some reductions to some of the other groups, and that's a good thing too. But to completely cut a group off without any kind of transition for them to adapt to what we're talking about, I don't feel it's fair, for one thing, but I also don't think it's to the best of our abilities. I mean, Councillor Thatcher brought it up also that, we need to make thoughtful decisions and have a process to go through that, and we didn't do that. We just basically said, okay, we'll do that without knowing. I mean, if you say, well, we talked about how, this is going to be handled in-house, we didn't, and we just, the staff said, oh, well, they can do it. But I had a conversation with some staff who said, well, yeah, but it won't be this. Maybe it won't, but we didn't have that discussion. And I think there's a lot more, there are a lot more things that need to be discussed than that. Let's see, I had a couple other things. To link, that this budget process, the delay of this budget process is somehow tied to citizens' unrest or something like Councillor Wallace was talking about, just makes no sense. I mean, we know we were without our CFO for the 2 months in January. That has more to do with
certainly has an opinion.
That certainly has more, well, of course, but that has more impact, right, than, criticism from the community about whatever. And that's just kind of silly. And as for...
That's your opinion, please.
That's right, that is my
Thank
opinion
you.
is that it's rather silly.
Thank you.
When you look at ink on paper and wanting to make sure that what makes sense and what doesn't make sense and all that, well, then you should be looking to cut groups that don't leverage funds, that don't bring more into the city. And that's not one of the considerations that we had when we were making this decision. I mean, based on what Councillor Fisher was saying about how, we need to make these cuts, we should have zeroed out all of the community groups, not just single out one against the other. All I'm suggesting by this motion here is that we fund the commission to their reduced rate for this year, and in June we do a thoughtful and comprehensive planning process. That is working to the best of our abilities, not the slash and burn that we've done here. That's about it.
Thank you, Sir. New stuff. You mentioned that you had a discussion with staff, and they said that they didn't know that they could do this. Can you tell us who you spoke with?
Well, yeah. I mean, that was when with Ann Demude and Terry and Mike, we were sitting and we were talking about what the capacity was. And his thing was, well, there's no way that the planning department would be able to take on all this. It was just a statement of fact. It's not something none of us, knew.
Again, you say statement of fact. It probably may not be a statement of fact. if we make other decisions?
We had that discussion the other
Oh,
night.
good.
We had the discussion the other night when I asked staff, when she didn't allow staff to answer, whether they would be able to incorporate the work plan, which we had approved in principle, of 575 hours, yes. And your response was, well, no, we'll cut or we'll do this. We're not saying it will be that. So I'm just saying, it's just logic, right? There's not 575 hours of spare staff time. If there is, we're overstaffed.
Totally agree. And 575 hours is a lot of work. Please.
Thank you.
And it's something new on the table
Okay,
here.
don't be cutting me off.
Never will cut.
Okay, so, yeah, interesting comments. Thank you for everyone around the table for making your comments clear. So, I think Councillor Blumey mentioned that there are numerous people in the community who are happy about this decision, and no doubt there are. But I would probably reckon that those folks are not the ones who are the shakers, the movers, the doers, the volunteers, the ones who are part of this gallery, who come out and do a lot of things to move a community forward with change. And change is difficult. And thinking outside the proverbial box is difficult. But this is what this group and the sustainability plan, and I will reiterate, the sustainability plan, it's not just some group that came together and decided that sustainability is, you know, a buzzword and we're going to look after it. We adopted a plan a number of years ago, and I'm proud to say I was part of that process. And I'm proud to say, again, that this community stands out above and beyond other communities because of that plan and the initiatives of this group. So, people who are against it, great, come to council and tell us then. But unfortunately, or fortunately, they are not here, are they? They're not here telling us that they're in favor of it. So I just needed to make that fairly clear, obviously. And the other thing is that I didn't, but majority of this council voted to increase the Museum Society budget by $23,000, which is almost the difference between this group's cut and what is to come down the road. So we didn't cut everybody, and we cut some groups not at all, the ones that were on the lower end of our funding. And to clarify to Councillor Blumey again, I don't think that the community support is going to go down into the operating, the other side of the, which is still down below, I think. No, this is okay, well, it's not going to go in there because it's going to be part of someone's salary. So just to clarify, and if you could, Cecile, is the $28,000 going to go down onto the other side of the community support? Is it going to move from the 28,000? No, it's not. It's going to go, someone's salary is going to cover it. So the $28,000 is taken out. I need to clarify that, just so the people...
Is taken out.
Yeah.
But in kind, it will be in kind.
Yeah. So...
That was what Councilor Blumey said.
Well, in kind, you're not going to get $28,000 worth of in kind out of a paid salary manager or whoever's going to do the job. And to Councillor Wallace's comments about the comments about, you know, respect from the community and comments about staff and salaries and all of that, the community is allowed to say what they want to say, just like they're saying tonight. No one was disrespectful here. And if people feel, I'm just going to comment on what she had said, please, that if you think that people are being disrespectful to staff, I would beg to differ. I haven't heard anyone being disrespectful here.
I don't think that was the comment, Councilor. The comment was not to this group by any stretch of
well, the
imagination.
comment in general. So maybe it was just totally out of order and I should have just, you know, said that. But however, it didn't make any sense to me either. So anyway, I am urging you all, give this a year. Give it the year like every other group is getting with, you know, a cut that they've already offered up to $28,000. And let's just be a little bit more respectful to sustainability, which is, I noticed, excuse me, one more thing, I'm going to diverge for a second.
Councillor Moore said that people are not, or Councillor Wallace said, people are not welcome at some Sustainability Commission things. I'd like to know how many councillors were at the Earth Day celebration. I know how many were there, and it was 2 of us. And if you want to see a group put on a phenomenal community event where we were all more than welcome, and I apologize if others were there and I didn't see you. If that's not welcoming, I certainly don't know what is. And this group has worked endlessly to do some of the, again, outstanding things for our community. And I really think that I'm going to be really embarrassed and, yeah, I'm going to be disappointed if council doesn't make, reinstate this $28,000 to this group.
I just want to ask Councillor Blumey if you want to defend the movers and shakers that you know.
Go for it.
I'm just kidding.
No, I will speak to it afterwards.
All right, for sure.
Quickly, just to speak to the ability part of it and the kind of ad hoc words that I'm hearing, and some of these other things. Nobody's ever going to be happy with you if you say no, ever. They're never going to be happy, and they're not going to go quietly, and this is the way that it is. The other part of this is the Sustainability Commission, as I understand it, was getting seed money from the City of Rossland to move down a sustainable road eventually. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not
true.
So it was just...
There's always an
okay. So, off base on that one. We're going back to ability, though. We have to have, internally here, and for the whole community, at some point, if we're going to talk about the ability and the fairness issue and the planning issue, it would be irresponsible, completely irresponsible, to say, oh, let's do a 20% cut, or cut all the community groups. That's what I'm hearing, that's part of a suggestion, that we would take a equal cut to everyone. When I don't think the playing field is absolutely equal for all of them, from the fact that some of them can go on if they're brought in-house. The volunteerism can still go on. Some others couldn't go on at all because some of the money that they're getting is to print leaflets and brochures. And their volunteers are doing a lot of other things that they're not asking money for at the time. I think that the way that it's been done by looking at each individual group, and I'll use a specific group, the Trail Society was not cut because its funding was related to some funding that's being applied for and approved through the regional district that actually is more Rossland money that goes into the regional district and we get some of it back. But we didn't do that. Had we done that, then potentially we would have had a double whammy on the reduced cuts. So you can't do it in a fair way. It's not fair. There's nothing you can do about that. You can't say 10% across the board or 15% or get rid of all of them. That was mentioned. Councilor mentioned it, just as an update. So I don't think that having that kind of cutting across the board works like that. So.
Councilor Blue, you want to finish up?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to speak to the, needing, or the idea that perhaps we need to put this off for another year in order to make the proper transition planning. I don't think we need that. If we were changing the scope drastically, if we were changing the structure, then that would make sense to me that we would need to plan ahead, do a transition planning. But right now, what we're proposing, it is basically just as if, Anne had to give up the position and someone else were to take her place. I mean, it's really just sort of a shuffling of the duties. And there'll be staff person attending the meetings, and when an item comes up that needs taken care of, then, that staff person would know this is what to do next. So I don't really believe that there is any complicated transition planning necessary here. Now, whatever we decide over this, planning summer that we've set out, chances are there will be some big innovations and changes for any number of community groups. and there may be some transition planning required, but we'll take care of that then. This particular one situation doesn't need that. I wasn't actually going to comment about the movies and shakers bit, but, you know, the people I have heard this from have been, they're definitely very valuable citizens. I mean, I would say that anybody is, but they're ones who've been very, very active, I would say, for the most part, too. You know what, I think that's all I've got. I'm not going to support this motion, but, I did want to make sure that I added, please, that, you know, if we can just shuffle around, you know, put the 28,000 back and take it from other places, you know, I would argue that if we can still take it from other places, we should just take it from other places and leave it like that.
Okay. It's third time, Councillor.
I would like to comment to Councillor Bloomy's comments about not being a dramatic transition. We all looked at the work plan that was put forward by the SC. We agreed to it in principle. That work plan involved 575 hours. Now, that is not an insignificant thing to figure out how to transition. So if we're to do this, I would offer that it is a very significant thing that we're having to do to this group. It will dramatically change what they're able to accomplish, and I think it's important. The other comment to Councillor Wallace's comment about people not knowing what the SC does and all of that. You may recall in the last council we had newsletters that went out from council, and council actually updated the community on a lot of the activities of the SC. This council has maybe done none or one newsletter, and I think that's part of our responsibility too. It costs money for the SC to put out newsletters on their own. The city should be doing it to update our citizens, and quite frankly we have been a little lax on that. So I think that's part of the reason people don't understand what all has gone on. That said, the SC has done a far better job communicating with the citizens about their activities than we have, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to call the question, please. I'm going to call the question. I mean, really. What? Who's next?
Centimeter.
One.
Okay.
All right.
No, and I just want to, you know, also say to Councillor Blumey that, you know, I don't know, I think we're taking it very lightly about an easy transitioning, and I also wanted to clarify that I'm not in support of the Sustainability Commission manager's position taking a year to go in-house. I don't want it to go in-house. I want that body to stay the same as it is, and so it should.
Okay, thank you. So,
I think you brought it plain, please. I don't doubt that there will be more responsibility put on the shoulders of volunteers. I know that that's going to happen. I recognize that. And, you know, I would hope that okay, I feel like they're motivated enough that will still work, and perhaps it could be opened up where we can encourage more volunteers to sit around the table.
okay, I'm going to get the motion read, please, and then I'm going to call a question. I'm going to call a question. Please hold your hands up in favor right away, and opposed right away. Please.
Motion, first by Moore, seconded by Spearn. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that Council find the funds necessary to support the Sustainability Commission up to $28,000.
On that motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's defeated. Next. Okay, Cecilia, you want to...
Great. Okay, so unless council has any other issues that they would like to discuss and bring forward, this is what the bylaw looks like. It's been circulated, and I would recommend that we give it to release tonight when we get out of Committee of the Whole.
Okay, so, yes.
Well, I'm wondering if we could have a little discussion about the spring-fall cleanups, and, you know, why that amount has increased. And I guess my question really is whether tipping fees at the landfill have a significant piece of it or not.
Derek, twice weekly, or twice yearly.
I'm hoping this year that actually the costs are going to come down. There's been a resident in town that is taking a lot of our debris. The leaves, the branches, not the larger material. So our costs of running it all the way to trail, our tipping fees should be reduced. I mean, he approached me about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, that he was willing to take this material. If he does, that'll be excellent. We'll reduce our cost by, I'm going to guess, 15%. I caution council of, if you want to go to one, the spring cleanup is probably 2/3 of of both combined, because the fall is it's not near as popular as the spring one. So just keep that in mind, if you're looking at reducing that. Councillor Spring.
Yeah, I was going to suggest the fall one. It's obvious when you drive right around town. There's a lot of people using spring cleanup, so that's great. I have a little bit of concern of the plastic bags full of leaves. It's an enormous number of plastic bags to put organic material in. Is there a reason? I mean, I don't know how else you get them there, but do you have any other suggestions around that? Like, how you rake the stuff to the side of the road and then the city picks that up? Like, could the leaves just be laid out or something? I mean, I think it's pretty irresponsible to be bagging, I don't know, thousands of bags? I don't know how many bags there are. And sending that to the landfill, the plastic to the landfill. So, I mean, we used to talk about being a plastic bagless community, but obviously that's gone by the wayside. But do you have any suggestions, Karen, on that?
Yeah, we've brought it up with the crew, and we've tried asking them to put them on tarps, so that we just take the tarp and dump it in. Right. Unfortunately, the wind comes through and blows them. We've asked, where we can get with the loader and just clam them, that, we do damage to the lawns. This has been by far the least labor-intensive way of doing it. And I agree, I mean, yeah, we are using, bags. We're lucky to have bags this year because the guy who's using them, he has to pack them, so he's happy to have them in bags, and then he'll discard, of course, in the bag later.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've been wanting to discuss this for a while, actually, so I'm really grateful whoever brought it up. Now, I don't know, last time we dealt with the spring or fall cleanup, brought up, do we really need this? And the answer was, if we don't do this, then there are some people who put their yard waste in inappropriate places, and it becomes a bigger problem, potentially more expensive. So, I get it now, but I do also have a big issue with all that, just the gardener part of me, understanding that there's all this, nutritious carbon going who knows where and not getting used. It's going out of our community into, the landfill. And so I just wonder, is there an organic waste section of the landfill that it does go to? And I guess the fact that it's wrapped up in plastic means that it doesn't degrade anyway, but what is the process at the other end of it, just so I understand what we're dealing with? Yeah, they do bring in a grinder, like a chipper kind of thing, and they do end up making topsoil out of a lot of it. Yeah. I'm not that super familiar with the operation. I just know that we get offered topsoil back in return for the organics that we bring down. Okay, well, that right there makes me a little bit more comfortable because there is at least a certain amount of exchange and it's coming back up here. But I guess, something I haven't been able to work out in my head perfectly in time for the spring cleanup, but the mention that there is somebody in town who's expressed interest in taking some of it, that is sort of going in the direction that I was, wanting to take a full entire idea to, but anyway, is there any way that we can sort of maximize on that, as in let people realize that if they do need more carbon, I guess, for their yards, if they want to access that, or create, a larger compost or something like that. Anyway, is there any way that we can communicate that out in the community and see if there are any takers, I guess. Is that something that's easily done, or do I need to polish up this idea a bit and come back in the fall?
Possibly in a newsletter or something, you know, I don't.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
if I could, Your Worship, I think if Councillor Libby would like to polish up the idea and bring it forward.
Yeah, okay.
In the fall, or before the fall cleanup.
Yeah.
Then we could send out the notices.
Okay.
Once more.
I'd like to just make a motion that we delete the fall cleanup.
Mhm.
Same thing.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Yes, please.
Yeah, I actually support that. I don't have a problem with deleting the fall and saving a little bit of the budget, but there's just 2 points. The regional district did buy a grinder, so there's one down there now that is certainly available for other communities to rent if they need to. The other piece, I'm pretty sure, if the organics show up at the landfill in a plastic bag, they're going to be charged at mixed waste, which is a considerably higher tipping fee, so.
Yes, this year they started that, so we were going to cut them open, dump them in the, you know, into the loader bucket, and then they'd go.
Okay, we have a motion.
Yep.
Okay, motion for recommendation, sir, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Further?
Yes.
Just so that the people from the press are aware of it, and also they were here, and anyone else that's remaining. I wouldn't mind going over those things that are kind of significant increases on the operating expenses quickly. And I'd pick out protective services.
Protective services, if I could, Your Worship, protective services is just it's salary allocation, where it used to be in transport services, is now higher up in protective services because of the building inspection.
So did it go down on the other end?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's a labor allocation.
Perfect. And then sewer operations, that one again?
Sewer operation was the contract with the RDKB that went up to $25,000.
Right, so that's a 9% increase because of the RDKB increase?
Well, the part of it is also, it's mostly that because the RDKB increase went up 25,000, so it's 470, so you do the math real quick.
Yeah, so you get another $20,000.
Right, and that's the one where we increased the legal by 20 grand because of the sewer arbitration that we're in.
Yes.
Might not necessarily spend that, but that's.
Okay, I'm just
one second. Councillor Walsh wanted to speak to that, because it's a regional issue.
Yeah, and the other piece of the sewer budget is that for the last number of years, one of the participants was requesting that any increases to the budget be managed from reserve funding, rather than increasing the requisition. That was a request from one of the participants. This year, we recognize that we just cannot continue to do that anymore. The reserve funds for an essential service that can be potentially very expensive at a moment's notice is pretty significant. You can't deplete those funds anymore, and that was the staff request that we stop that approach, and that's why you're seeing the increase.
Okay, back to you, Karen.
The recreation and cultural?
Do you remember what that was, Karen? I don't remember off the top of my head. I know we talked about it on May 1st. So I don't remember what it was, whether it was, would you like it up a little bit?
I'm having a hard time seeing things. Thank you.
It doesn't explode if you put it on over top.
Oh, yeah, I just want it bigger.
Oh.
Sorry, not
One.
Well,
Okay, then you won't see all the years. Are you gonna be all right?
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine.
Fine?
No, I don't have a quick
That
answer.
guy's broadband's at the
Not
bottom.
either. We can certainly, come back to council with it. I don't, very candid, I don't remember what it was. I think some of it is allocation.
Yeah, I made some notes on that too. Let me just see what I had. Okay, so, because I did drill down on it a bit. From 2010 to 2013, there was a 39% increase in administrative costs. 1213 represents a 12% increase in administrative costs over 2012 actuals. That's up 13,500. Meanwhile, cost of events and programs has declined by 13. And my question there, was this due to efficiencies in the programs or less events and programs? And of why that?
I can't answer that off the top. I know that the administration costs have gone up, and that could be with different salary allocations, because you'll see that general government went down. We can certainly see if we can find it. Oh, man, I wish I remembered that. I had notes last time. Honestly, I didn't think we'd be going there again.
Well, it's a big increase.
But overall, it's a 3% decrease. So when you're looking at salary allocations, right, sometimes one will go up and then one goes down. It's just, the overall budget went down 3%.
I have a concern about that, because when you're looking at plan to plan. What I think is more relevant is to look at is 2013 plan to 2012 actual, because quite honestly, I don't care so much about what we planned last year. I really care about what we actually spent. To me, that was the relevant number.
With all due respect, Your Worship, we reviewed the differences between 2012 year-to-date, knowing that the year-to-date is not final yet, right? And we did that on May 1st, right? So we're saying the government services were higher planned then than they are now, because you were short-staffed. Right, you went a whole year without a CFO and half a year without a CAO. So you really can't plan to spend only that when you're filling those positions.
Yeah, that's really the only one where that works.
And so if you look at this and this, that's pretty darn close. And then your flow-throughs, it's just an internal equipment flow-through. So what it is when Darren's going through his jobs, he's looking and he's thinking, okay, if I'm going to do a little bit less of this or a little bit, then I'm going to have a little bit of a lower equipment cost. But it's a flow-through. And if you take it out of the internal equipment charge, so if you're going in and you say, we're going to cut, we're no longer going to do a job, you're going to cut the equipment cost along with the labor. And the equipment cost, all that's going to do is changes your internal equipment revenue. You're going to save on capital by not using your equipment as much, and you're going to save a little bit on fuel and gas, but really it's a flow-through. So that's that one there. The sewer operations, remember we told you we were short-staffed last year. He was short a guy, and there was a lot of jobs that were deferred. The environmental health, well, we said about the same. We actually went over budget last year a little bit. The public health, that's, I'm going to guess that's cemetery, so I'm thinking this might not be finalized yet. We're working on the year-end as well. And so it's basically recreation and cultural. That one there, you see, we spent 180 last year. So if you look at the fact that this is up higher than your 2012 plan, it's really, we spent more money last year. And it's also, you have to remember that 50% of your operations budget is labor. 50%. So when your labor goes up 2% and 3%, it's pretty, when you come in at a minus 3% overall in operation, that's not bad. And when we say that when in June we're going to go back and really look at this, I mean, if you guys want to cut it today, Darren and I sat down, we did the math, and we said, you know, if we want to cut a lot of it, we would never professionally recommend that you cut anything in operations today without having done your whole asset management plan. What do you need to do to prevent? What do you need to do that's preventative maintenance so that you can get extra life out of that? And if you don't do the prevention, then you're going to pay later. It's the same as if you don't fix your roof and it leaks and it collapses, it's going to cost you a lot more down the road than it will today. So you can't all of a sudden decide, well, we're not going to flush sewer lines and water lines and that. So, Darren,
just for, can I interrupt you for one?
Yep.
Ms. Arnett.
I'm pretty passionate about that.
I wouldn't have recommended the planning process first. I was just saying that I would like to have just a brief overview of some of the ones that went up so that we could have the people that would ask the questions out on the street. You know, why did you allow, because they won't ask that it went down minus 3%. They're going to say, why did that go up so much? And so that all of us know why it went up so much and provide an answer. And we're going into the planning, the asset management planning, and all the other planning to beat it up more.
Basically, you're telling me to get off my soapbox?
Yeah, you're okay.
I'll get off my soapbox and say that I will send out a memo and a report to council, hopefully by the end of day tomorrow so that you have your answers. How's that?
That'd be
Okay,
perfect.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry about that.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
I had a bunch of questions that it's kind of like we're sort of jumping around, and I'm trying to keep up with my sheet of when you're answering the questions that I wanted to ask. And I was wondering if I could just go through my questions, or go in sections maybe, so everybody else can ask too. Would that be possible? Is that all right to do?
Possible.
Okay, because I want to back up, and not something directly on this, but I'm not sure where it fits in. So, there had been a request in January from the Affordable Housing Group about a permissive tax exemption for 3 units of affordable housing, and we didn't address that. And I'm wondering if we should address it because it should either be included in this plan or it shouldn't.
It's with, if I might, that should be addressed as part of your permissive tax exemption when that comes up this fall, when we bring up the bylaw. Also, part of your whole planning is to also look at your permissive tax exemptions and how much money are you giving away through permissive taxes? Really?
Yeah.
So that's part of that. So actually, our deputy CEO mentioned that, and I said, no, that should be a part of.
Okay. The only problem with that is that the group was applying for a grant, and I think they needed to know, I think it was the end of this month is when their deadline is, and they needed to do some things. It was just whether they could get a letter from us, and whether we were supporting them.
Right, and the letter could say you're looking at it in principle, right?
Okay. Do we need to
you're looking at it, and then you'll be dealing with it as permissive tax.
Okay. But so we don't need to make a motion. Will that happen?
We can just send a letter in principle.
You might want to
we'll bring it up in the regular meeting when we will reconvene into the special meeting.
Okay.
When we go back, and you can bring it up as a member's report.
Okay. I might forget to do that. I'll try, but I mean, they have been, I'm writing it.
Your worship, I'll make sure that we address that before we conclude tonight.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And then also another thing that came up from a citizen was the tennis club. They mentioned that $5,000 has been set aside every year for their capital needs, and they have capital needs coming up in the next few years. And I'm just wondering, has that been happening, and which fund is it a part of? Because they seem to be under the impression that that's been going on, and I do recall it.
Again, this fall, when we're looking at it, I believe I saw that one of the small reserves that you have has got tennis. I don't have it with me, but I believe it's there.
Okay. Could you get back to me on where that is at
Actually, you know what? Why don't we just talk about it when we come back in June and start to do the next budget?
Okay, that would be perfect.
Forward then.
Okay, and then the other one, the elephant in the room, is that we still haven't seen a complete summary of Columbia, Washington.
Correct.
And we need that. I would feel much more comfortable if well, I've been asking for it since July, right? So you can imagine.
To be fair, we haven't had all the data, and staff is working on it. I know that it's on the desk, and I know that it's scheduled to be completed very quickly.
Oh, when? Let's get a date. Let's just.
No, you know what? With all due respect, I'm not going to give a date on that one.
It can be after May 15th.
Excuse me. Just because of all of the unplanned items that keep cropping up. So, with all due respect, I'm not going to give a date. I'm going to get it out as soon as I can.
Okay. Man, I think that's actually unacceptable, because this is our biggest project. It should be it's our biggest project we've done. The community has had a fair amount of angst over it. It's in the press that we have a $1.4 million overrun, which I didn't think we did, but we would like to be able to communicate to the citizens,
Your Worship,
right?
with all due respect, I totally agree that it should be done. I really do, so I can't say anything more on it. Sorry, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
It's being done, Council.
Yeah. I've been hearing that since July, so.
It's been being done.
Since July. Okay. Let's see, that one I got.
Well, no, I wasn't here in July.
No, you weren't. No, I started asking.
Working on it since she's in here, so.
I'm not saying she hasn't been. I'm just saying we need to get it out to the citizens. And we need to know ourselves.
We agree, totally, we agree.
Well, we don't agree enough if it isn't coming forward, right? Okay. So, again, you know, I went through this and looked, and this is why I wanted the pivot table, so I didn't have to input all this stuff myself and you know, do the math. But going through, because for me, like I said, it's more helpful to look 2013 plan to 2012 actual. And you mentioned that they're not final, which concerns me a little bit because our audited financial statement is due to the province on May 15th. So if they're not final now, they're really not final? The auditor hasn't been here and, like, done their auditing?
No, they haven't. Your Worship, we talked about this, and the fact that there's unmitigated circumstances for the year end not being final, and that it was going to be late this year. We talked about this some time ago. So, no, they're not, and we're still working on it, and they will be out as soon as we can. The auditors are coming the first week of June.
First week of June?
Oh, first or second week. I think we've had to change the date.
Okay, that's really interesting. So, does that mean, because we have to, I think the things we were supposed to file on May 15th were the financial plan, our taxes, our tax rate bylaw, and our audited financial plan.
Correct.
So, what are they going to do to us if we don't do that?
Probably they would do something really bad to us if we don't.
No, we didn't actually find the consequences out, actually.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Well, I mean, no, I didn't. We were told.
I told you.
You told us that it had to be done by the 15th.
What I said, Your Worship, is that it has to be done, but when you're late, you just let them know that you're late, and they say, it has to be done, but if you're late, the thing they can do is write a letter saying that you're contravening the meeting.
And you did say that in the meeting.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
No, I do remember that part.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, well, you know what, that will be fine. That will be fine. I also had, no, forget it, I won't bother with that. Okay. So, you know, when I went through and did this, going through and looking at the increases or the decreases or whatever, if you look at plan to actual, not plan to plan, you know, it's not quite as rosy as we say, right? It's like for total expenses, rather than decrease of nearly 3, it's an increase of nearly 7. You know, I mean, I have a whole bunch of these, but I imagine no one's particularly interested. I do have a question about utility taxes and concessions. And we used to get $50,000 a year, I think it was in 2010, and then suddenly it dropped to 36. And I think it was because we made a decision, help me here, about changing the rate. And I'm just wondering if we can look at that this year so we could perhaps get a little more revenue out of those utilities.
The utility taxes and concessions are based on revenue, and and I'm only guessing here because what happened in Grand Forks is that Fortis, theirs went down, so it could be what went down with ours too. But I will look.
But it's what we charge, right?
No, it's what we're allowed to charge.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we did not charge what we were allowed to charge. This is coming back to you. Do you remember this? I remember this. And there was like...
Yeah.
What is the mill rate that we're allowed to charge for utilities?
It's the maximum. Oh, are you talking? I'm sorry. Are you talking about the property taxes?
No.
No.
Utility.
No, that's a different thing.
The utility class?
The utility class, that's a different thing than what she's talking about. The utilities she's talking about is right-of-way money that you get back from
revenue
groups like Fortis and whoever's using your right-of-ways.
Looking to increase our revenue.
It is based on the proportion of revenue. So
their revenue.
2% of their revenue.
Right. And we charged for...
we don't charge. It's a law. It's legislated.
Yes, but we can do less. I think what we did, we ended up... Could you just look at it? Because I know there was an issue. We used to get 50,000. Now we're getting 36,000. That's it. We're looking for ways to increase revenue, right?
Tracy, did you get that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I'll look. I know what you're talking about.
Okay. 50 to 36 or whatever it went down. Okay, let's see. Oh, I'm just curious, we did collect DCCs in 2012, $35,000, and I just wonder what projects were those assigned to?
Columbia, Washington.
Columbia, Washington, okay.
They were not collected DCCs, they were use of previously collected DCCs that we were allowed to use towards Columbia, Washington.
Oh, wait a minute, that was in the revenue thing here. See, now
It is.
it's
It is in the revenue.
Is it?
Do I have a turn? Just one
Well,
question?
no, I just.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I just don't, this is, I guess, so I have to ask this. So if someone in Public Works retires, and I know that there's a retirement, and this is not anything that needs to be in camera labor-wise, it's just a general question. Do we contemplate or do we look at attrition of that position? So I don't know if that needs to go to Darren or otherwise, but, in companies that downsize, or businesses, or school boards, or whatever, when they downsize, if someone retires, they often look at not rehiring for that position, or whatever. So I'm asking the question.
You're asking.
Is that feasible to do that when a certain person retires? Have we looked at that? That would be my general question.
The answer would be that you could look at it. You do have a collective bargaining unit contract, though, that that precludes a lot of happening without doing a lot of negotiating. I believe the contract reads that if you do not fill, and Darren, you correct me if I'm wrong here, if you don't fill a vacant position, you cannot contract out for services. Am I correct, Darren? Did I say that right? Yes?
Well, I don't know there should be discussed here.
Well, I don't think it should be discussed here, but I believe that it's in the contract.
My interpretation of the contract should not be discussed here.
Okay, I wasn't asking for that. I was just asking, in general, in businesses or whatever, often you look at attrition, where you downsize, right? Someone retires, and I'm not talking about anyone's position or a specific position or anybody. I'm just talking about the concept of downsizing through attrition of workers.
And I think I'll just jump in there, and it is possible, yes, it is possible. I think that where the discussion has to come in June is if we downsize manpower, we certainly would have to downsize services.
Okay, well, that is my question.
That is the question.
Can we have the same kind of operating services with attrition occurring if a retirement were to occur?
Okay, but that's going to be service levels that we want to discuss.
Anyway, it's just a concept.
Yeah. Operations budget, remember, 50% is labor.
I know. So that's why I'm asking if we could reduce it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Back over there.
Okay.
Okay, you had mentioned that you found the increased revenues for new service for sewer and water, right? Mm-hmm. How much were they? Because I didn't know what they were.
We estimated 8,000 for water.
Okay, great. And sewer also?
That's right, 8,000
each. Okay, thank you. I got a great idea for June. We can talk about reducing the size of council, 4 councillors and a mayor instead of 6.
You overhear me?
Did you have that idea too? Yeah. Oh, yeah. We totally could, and I think we should consider it. Let's see. Okay, we talked about that one. Okay, we have talked about a bunch of these. Oh, I had another one. No, I don't. No, I know what that is. Forget it.
I wanted to make a phone call, but didn't I?
So in community support and operations, I'm just wondering what the justification for increasing the pool and the tennis court. I know that they're fairly small, but there didn't seem to be any reason. If we're looking to save money, could we just cut pool down to 40,000 and cut tennis to 500?
We made a recommendation.
That's on page.
Your Worship, I believe there was a recommendation in the committee of the whole minutes that reduced it by the 5%. Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, this isn't for the community. This is not the groups. This is actually the operations.
Sorry.
Okay, so again, this is your operations budget. Remember,
where are you?
If you're cutting there, the guys are going to be redeployed somewhere else. So you certainly say that you want to do less of a service at the tennis, but I really would strongly urge council to just do that in the fall or in June when you start to do the full
that's
plan.
good. I'll go with that.
Instead of piecemealing it.
Okay. Just trying to save a little money where we can, but that's good. Okay, well, that one will apply for that too. Okay, I think a bunch of these things will fall in the category of June planning. I'm so looking forward to it. I did notice. I noticed in capital projects that the Red Mountain entrance went from 200,000 to 100,000.
No,
and did it go someplace else?
If you remember that it was there were two projects that were together there, and they formed the 200. The total didn't change. I can't remember which one it was. I just cleaned it up.
Okay, so the other 100,000 is somewhere else.
That's right.
I looked for it, but I couldn't find it. Okay.
It's there.
Darn, I thought we had a half price sale.
There you go. Sorry about that. You almost said your highness.
What?
You almost said your worship.
I only get called that at home.
No, you get called here, buddy.
Okay.
That should change anyway. Worship.
Somebody else have something before I keep going? Or am I the only one with questions?
The monarchy. All due respect to the Queen, because I really quite like her.
Okay,
costs a lot of money.
I'm checking ones off that have been answered, right? But if somebody else has a question.
we're waiting for
I had one more.
I know, let her go while I'm
Well, it was
checking
general
things off.
concept again, and I have had actually a couple of emails from people about this, and this is not my pet, I'm telling you, because Darren knows why it's not my pet. So, we had a couple of emails about, snow removal, and we've even talked about it here before, and the high quality of our snow removal, and frankly, personally, I appreciate it, because I live in a gnarly spot on a gnarly hill that, is gnarly. But there have been a couple of emails to me just saying, I've lived so-and-so place, and Calgary was one of the examples, and they don't plow for 3 days, and even if you go down the hill to trail, I don't even know if they have a snow plow, because they don't plow down there, but, so it was just brought up again, and, I'm not the one to promote it, but I guess, I'm not the one to promote it at all, but I'm just saying that I've had a couple of emails from citizens about why it is that we are so meticulous, and my comment was because we live in a community or a city where the terrain is always challenging and there's never enough sand down, according to 90% of the citizens. So I don't know if Darren wants to even comment, but
Actually,
I don't know. It's a dilemma. It's expensive, but you know what? It's the nature of the beast.
If I could, Your Worship, this is another one that I would recommend that you
Goes to
wait
planning,
because
yes. Absolutely.
then you'll have an opportunity to talk to your
Absolutely.
constituents. If you did decide you wanted to do it tonight, Darren said that he could do it and save you $60,000, but it would mean that there would be the weekends, there would only be one person on the weekend, and you would only have Monday, Tuesday. So, it's got to be something I think that you want to discuss as part of the whole plan, strategic, going forward, what kind of levels of service do you want to cover.
So how many are on the weekend now, Darren? What?
3.
3, and that would be one plow going around town on the weekend?
2 from 5 o'clock till 3 o'clock, and then 1 from 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
And if I could, if you decided to do that, to get the policy going forward for snowplow, you could still save that money this year. You could decide to do that in June, and go forward with that, and then when it starts to snow in July,
bite your tongue.
When it starts to snow, then you'll have your policy.
Anyway, it's part of the bigger picture for sure. I promise you. And I appreciate that Darren even suggested it.
There's
Yeah.
some safety issues, all kinds of issues.
Oh,
there. Okay.
we know that,
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Thank you.
Counselor.
More about.
Well, yes. This one's kind of a more general thing. I'm kind of uncomfortable with doing all 3 readings on all of this tonight. I actually have some concerns that should be discussed in camera. And I'd like us to do first reading tonight and then have an in-camera early on the 8th, so we can still get to the All Candidates Forum, and then finish this up, do our second and third readings then, and then do our final adoption on the 13th.
What would the purpose of that be?
It would give us a chance to have an in-camera meeting on the 8th.
Your Worship, can we go in camera today?
Yeah.
We can go in camera.
We can go in camera right now.
Go in camera
Well, I
right
can
now.
tell you what I'm talking about, but I'm not really prepared to totally address that, right? It's a labor matter, right? So, but I'm not, I didn't come prepared to do an in-camera tonight. So.
If I could, Your Worship, we do have to have the bylaw out by May 15th, so if it's an in-camera, I think you could go in camera and bring it up to council and see if they are willing to look at it and have you bring it back to another in-camera discussion. And then we can move on.
Okay. Could I, this is really awkward, but could I also ask staff to leave the room while I discuss with council whether they want to have an in-camera on this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
She can do that,
Yeah,
can't
I'm
she?
just waiting for council to...
Okay, so I just want to, I had always understood that there's, for a bylaw, there's the 3 readings plus the, what's the other one called? It's adoption, right? Okay. So, and we can make changes all the way up to passing the adoption, right? So really no matter which way we separate it out, so long as we do the last one as planned on the 13th, then we're fine, right?
And another thing that I need to bring to council's attention is if we go to May 13th to do adoption, one of the reasons I would have liked to get a special meeting for me to adopt this week is that one of our staff is being called away on a family emergency, and if we could get the 3 readings for the tax bylaw done Wednesday, she could run the taxes for us this week. If not, we will have to hire a consultant to come in and do it, and that'll cost $175 an hour, plus travel, plus supplies.
Okay,
So something to keep in mind, right? Going forward.
all right, so first of all, I need a motion to go in camera.
I'll make the motion.
Seconded? All in favor?
Your Worship, I need to know what the category is.
90, section 1, C. Labor, C.
Okay. And that was seconded by Spring?
Sure. Okay, all in favor, did we do that already? Motion carried. All right, we're gonna go in camera, 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Take a break.
In 2 seconds.
Sorry, Nadine, and I'm not talking about the front seat, Nadine, I'm talking about the second seat, Nadine, you just arrived at
I'm not that skinny.
I'm moving.
So why didn't we finish and then go on camera at the end of the meeting, so everyone sees? So where are we at? Are we in the session?
Oh, you're in a committee as a whole?
Yeah, now we're on camera, but so like the press leaves and then they don't come back because we're not done. Why didn't we do it at the end of the night?
I was wondering too, hopefully.
Well,
it's gonna take a long time.
it just seemed convoluted, but that's.
Should we?
I mean, what we were doing, well, now what she's saying about wanting to get the thing done on the 8th, my thing was I was just gonna explain to you all why I wanted to go in camera, and then you could decide whether you wanted to go in camera.
I'm not available on Wednesday.
Oh, you're not
Well,
available.
for me, that we do it now, anyway. But I'm worried that maybe we should talk him, that it should.
That it shouldn't take too long.
Not
Well, he may come back.
That's beef. That's turkey.
Okay.